Hello there, friends. It is your boy, the Goo Man, and today we're going to talk about what causes autism. My name is Andrew. I'm an academic STEM researcher with over 15 years of experience in my field studying autoimmune diseases and neurodivergence. And somebody tagged me on this video going around of this guy in a suit just blaming obese women with diabetes for causing autism. So I figured I'd come on and clear some things up about what modern research says is the driving cause behind the pathology of autism. This is going to go really quick, so I'm going to put all of the papers below in my comments like I normally do. These are my notes that I typed up behind me. You can kind of see how my brain works. So first things first, I think autism is an autoimmune disease. You have a specific cell in your immune system called a mast cell. These mast cells, that is a mouthful, are what cause the pruning or lack thereof in the brain. Next, we have to talk about how your brain grows when you're cooking in your parents and why it gets so beefy. That has to do with insulin resistance because your brain needs glucose to grow. And this is what a lot of men in the scientific community like to use to blame women for causing autism. It's what that dude was talking about in that video, right? So women with diabetes, gestational diabetes, any kind of insulin resistance leads to a lot of blood sugar floating around and for the brain to be able to get real big. It's also why neurodivergent and autistic people have a ton of blood sugar issues like hypo and hyperglycemia and diabetes. Next, we have to talk about how all of that happens. How do we get too much sugar in our blood? And that comes from mitochondrial and adipose mutations. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's responsible for making your body and your brain go burr. And the fat in your body is actually an immune system organ, depending on who you talk to. This right here is what's at the heart of autoimmune diseases, autism, neurodivergence, and psychiatric presentations. And everything that I'm talking about here, I've covered on my page in depth, piece by piece. I have books on it. You can check the top 3 pinned vids that I have. They explain everything. But essentially, the powerhouse of the cell is all out of whack. And this can come from a couple different things. It usually shows up in the thyroid in the mother or again in gestational diabetes, but it can also come from trauma, stress, and famine. In fact, a lot of the genetics that we have that get turned on by this stuff are because we have survived famines and plagues in the past. There are mountains of papers that talk about the connection between mitochondrial dysfunction, autism, and insulin resistance. Now, here's where your daddy comes in with all of this. Because it takes 2 to tango, we've recently discovered that men can pass on mitochondrial DNA too. We used to just, again, think it was the women. And this kind of mitochondrial DNA controls the size of the fetus. The mom wants to limit the fetus, but the dad wants the fetus to grow bigger. And that includes your brain. This gene stands for insulin growth factor, so, it takes all that extra blood sugar floating around and it gives you that big, beefy brain formation. Last but not least, we have to talk about pathogen exposures and environmental exposures. Remember how we talked about autism being an autoimmune disease? Well, that can be triggered by a pathogen, specifically certain types of viruses and certain types of bacteria. And this isn't just while you're cooking. This can also happen when you're a very small child from like 0 to 3. It's called PANS and PANDAS. It's a post-acute infection. It causes something called encephalitis. It's mild brain inflammation and the sudden onset of neurodivergent behaviors like ADHD and OCD. And if you've made it this far, I have to do my self-plug real quick. Much like NPR, my research is funded by you. Contributions from people like you help keep my research going, help keep this content accessible to the community. So if you would like to help me continue my mission, you can hit me up on Cash App, Venmo, PayPal under the Goo Man STEM. I'm also on GoFundMe. You can check the link tree in my bio with my publications